This is All About Home Construction, and here's your hosts, Terry Cannell Beck and Randy Blake.
That's right. Good morning, Randy.
Not on, Terry.
Yeah, we're on. You just don't have your headphones up. How are you, buddy?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Living the dream, man. Living the dream. It's a nice Saturday morning. What else would you like?
Yeah. That's all right.
Well, so welcome back. Glad you had a good time last weekend. And hate that you missed. We had a good show. We talked a lot about with our insulated services down in Charlotte. Came on and talked a lot about just sort of the industry, the construction industry, especially the jobs and what's available. So it was pretty good stuff. So
thank you all for letting me go. I got to see 38 Special live.
Nice.
It's one band off my list.
Sweet.
And I was up. I could have called in, but it's hard to call in.
Yeah,
with.
you can't have two people on the phone at once.
That's right.
So. Well, hey, how did the meal go last week? The VFW.
Excellent.
Good.
Thanks everybody for coming out. They actually, realistically, would have had 3 meals left over.
Nice.
And then I broke it up, made it into 5 meals, and I donated it to a veteran family in need.
That's awesome.
And
that's great. That's worth it right there.
So, and then they had karaoke behind it. So that was
I saw maybe it was their Facebook post or something that they were doing karaoke. I was like, that's pretty fun. So I'll have to make it out to a karaoke sometime.
Well, I can't sing, so I don't show.
Yeah, I bet. No, we do appreciate all of our listeners out there, though. By the way, thanks for listening to us, All About Home Construction, whether you're listening on WATA, of course, the podcast. And we're asking all of our friends to share the show. And especially those listening live, you can go back and re-listen. And if you want to catch some information, it's worth it. It's cool stuff. So we appreciate that. So we're growing. We're growing. We like everybody listening to us right now.
Yes, we are. I know I belong to some construction sites and on Facebook and comment on certain things there. And it's wild how different parts of the United States do things different than we do.
Right.
But I guess that's the reason places blow down.
Right. Well, I mean, that's it wasn't too long ago. I had this same discussion with someone. It's like, you can't build that here. It was one of those Amazon houses, that the package deals that you can buy. And I was like, that's cool, but you can't put that in the mountains of North Carolina. Well, without a lot of work.
You have to take those kits and take them to an engineer, and he has to engineer it to withstand the wind.
Right.
Now the 90-mile-an-hour wind zone does not exist anymore. See, they raised it to 100 mile. Remember when you lived down in Triplet? Yep. Now that's a 100-mile-an-hour wind zone.
Right.
And like we're bidding on a steel building, and it's in Vallecrucis. But Vallecrucis winds
like 120, right?
Yeah, but it's not as high up as Banner Elk.
Because you're in the valley, yeah.
But it's the Banner Elk zip code, so it goes up to the Banner Elk zip code, and that's the wind load.
So it's not like site specific. It's just like neighborhood.
Well, it is in residential, but in commercial, it's not.
Okay.
It's a zip code.
Okay.
And so it's there's a lot of difference between residential and commercial,
right?
And which, as I mentioned before, I asked, I have to have 10 hours of class a year.
Right.
Okay. And last year the question what I asked is when we're going to start building the seismic loads.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, commercial's been doing it since '86. And we also did a radio show on the plates in Watauga and Avery and Ashe counties, the seismic plates. Yeah. And look what happened to Sparta a few years ago.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that they had a lot of damage over there just out of the blue.
But that was conventional construction.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was nothing wrong with conventional construction when it's built. But today's standards, it's all changed. And most people, didn't realize that every 150 years we have a major earthquake.
Right.
We're having a lot of tremors in the areas. Even think about South Carolina. You wouldn't think down there that, they would have the tremors that they're having.
Right.
But we're all connected through the seismic plates.
Yep. Well, and if you don't believe they're seismic plates, go look out your window. We have these things called mountains.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like I think because it's not such a common occurrence. It's like, oh, they just have earthquakes in California. We don't have to worry about them here, but yeah, they happen, and they happen more than we realize.
Well, we're not far from one of the largest earthquake areas on the East Coast,
right?
And that's Reelfoot Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that there was geysers that come out, sand geysers that come out of the ground and went nearly 50 to 100 feet in the air.
Wow.
And that's how the lakes was formed,
yeah.
and it moved the whole Mississippi River when it had it.
Yep, that's crazy. It's cool stuff. Well, anyway, all about home construction here. We're getting talked a little bit about some residential. I say we stay outside in our conversation today.
Yeah, well, that's where we're going.
Let's do it.
And, springtime's coming. I think it's coming a little sooner. The maple leaves are out about 3/4 of an inch now. The willow trees are out. I seen a tree the other day that was in full leaf.
Yeah. Well, I went to, it was just about, 3 weeks ago when I went down to Charlotte. It was like spring had already came and gone almost.
Yeah, bad for pears are getting ready to start losing their petals.
Well, that's the thing. And so, this time of year is that weird time where things are coming out. Flowers are coming out and trees are starting to bud. And we're not out of winter at all necessarily.
Nope. So. Philadelphia is snowing yesterday.
Yep. So, but anyway, let's sticking with the trees. Go ahead, Randy. Who we got today?
Well, we got Travis Small coming in and going to talk about your fruit trees and what you need to do with them. And I've known Travis for 5-6 years now.
Yep.
And I know he's big into apple trees. And talk to our people about fruit trees, especially about stuff around the house.
All right. Well, it is springtime, and the apple trees are starting to swell the buds, and they're in the silver stage, and a few of them have swollen the buds up to starting to emerge. So that means right around the corner we'll be having blossoms on the apple trees, and probably in the next 2 weeks. So right now is the time to get your pruning done. If you haven't already, it's time to get out there and prune your apple trees and pear trees and all your fruit trees.
Now, you said it's getting ready to bud. Is this a crucial time? Because I know, like, again, you hear like, oh, no, the blooms are out, the frost came, and now we don't have apples this year. Is this a crucial time just the same, or do we have a little leeway on the weather-wise?
All right. Well, with the buds starting to swell, once the blossoms come out, each blossom will be viable for about 3 days to be pollinated. After the blossoms fall off, then that's when your fruit could start forming right behind where the blossoms were at. It is a crucial time because if we get a frost while they're in bloom, then it can kill the
apple fruit
pieces, or the parts inside the flower itself, the gentle little pieces. Also, another thing that people don't realize is if we have cold, damp days during blossom, the honeybees and other pollinators will not necessarily come out. You need 45 degrees or better for the honeybees to be really active in your orchard.
Dry weather.
And dry weather.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the thing, and to me, it's especially when we talk about all fruit trees, but especially apple trees. There's just something about the like the tradition in the U.S., like especially here in North Carolina, right? Like we have this big tradition of growing apples, and every farm at least had one tree, kind of thing. But I think it's almost an art that's almost gone away in a lot of ways. I mean, there's a lot of orchards around, but it's very, you now go to a big orchard. You don't have 3 trees here and 3 trees there. So I think it's some knowledge that a lot of people just kind of lost over the years.
Yes, it is a lost art. My son and I, we work on apple trees all through the winter while the trees are dormant. We prune the trees. We take care of the trees. Some people may have 2 or 3 trees in the backyard. Other people may have 35 to 40 trees in their backyard orchard.
And different species.
And
Different
different
size.
varieties.
Yeah.
Different varieties. Yeah, yep. And different sizes, different ages. A lot of people have the large tree in the backyard or even in the front yard that is just overgrown, and it takes a full day for two people to work on it and try and get it back into shape.
Now, do they bleed like maple trees and stuff?
No, they're not like a maple tree. As far as the amount of sap that's flowing right now is very low.
Yeah.
So when you cut a tree, it only takes a few hours for the fresh cut to actually heal over, and it starts turning an orange color. Kind of a auburn, kind of a rusty orange color, and that's as it's drying. And that's also crucial time because there's fire blight bacteria and other fungal issues that can actually come into your wounds. And if the wound is wet, it's more susceptible to the disease coming in.
Right.
So when you're looking at your weather forecast, you want to look ahead to say, okay, before we start pruning, we want to make sure we're going to get rained out, because rain is something that will help.
It.
Yes, damp conditions, and also just the fact the splash that happens can actually spread the bacteria.
What about freezing weather? Like if you prune it, you don't want to prune them before it freezes?
Right. You want to watch the forecast before, and you want to watch the forecast in the future. Usually 24 hours is enough, unless you're going to end up one of those really, really cold sessions like we had a couple of Christmases ago.
That's it. Let's take a quick break. We'll come right back right after this. Thanks for listening to us. That's right, all about home construction here on WATA. And again, thanks for listening to us, whether you listen to us on the podcast or the radio this morning. Thanks. We really appreciate you guys. Speaking with Travis Small, and Travis, thanks for coming in and talking to us about trees, but it's in particular fruit trees. We appreciate that. So,
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
yeah. Now, full disclosure, I grew up, Randy, on an apple tree. I mean, there was trees 25 feet from the house, and they had close to 100 by the time I was a kid. They started to die off a little bit. And
Well, my
none of them
granny
are there
had
anymore.
two transparent apple trees, but I believe she killed them because she's cutting switches.
But
We had black cherry trees,
yeah.
and I couldn't wait till the black cherries.
Well, that's it. I had we grew up, like I said, the apples, Red Delicious, and we had some Golden Delicious. Was the two main things that we carried. And then, but I remember my grandparents' farm, like the old home place, if you will. There's, I don't know what type of apples these were, 100-something-year-old trees, and it's big yellow apples. They wouldn't last long. They would the fruit itself wouldn't last long. But when you got a hold of it, it was like the sweetest apple ever. I love it. I don't know what it was, and I'd love to go back and see. And the trees are there, but I don't know if it's still bearing fruit.
Can you remember the color of the fruit?
Yeah, it was a weird yellow, like I say weird, like it was an off yellow color. It wasn't like the green. It wasn't like a Golden Delicious, in other words. It was a yellow apple.
How many species of apple in the United States?
Oh, there are thousands of apples varieties in the United States and worldwide. But one of the most unfortunate things is that a lot of the old trees have been lost.
Yeah.
Just to the generations, and also just not people not carrying on the apple trees as far as grafting and keeping the specific variety going.
Well, there you mentioned something important right there about grafting. Why do they graft trees? I know a lot of rootstock is not apple stock, or it is an apple stock, but it's not.
Usually crab apple rootstock
Correct.
is what's used quite often. Well, we'll start from the bottom up. When you start with rootstock, you want you can choose the size of your tree on the overall. You could have a dwarf rootstock, you could have a semi-dwarf rootstock, or you could have a standard rootstock. And so the dwarf rootstock, the tree may grow to 10, 11 foot tall and start slowly grow, not grow as tall, past 10 or 11 feet. Now, semi-dwarf might go to 11 to 15 foot tall, but a standard rootstock can go even bigger. I've seen trees here in Watauga County that have been over 35 foot tall.
Now, do they have a crabapple tree that big?
Not crabapple, but there are several varieties that have been brought over from Europe, because here in North America, before the settlers came in, basically there's just crab apples, and there was no development of improving the apples that were here in North America. So the Europeans brought in seeds or even sign wood to graft onto rootstock. There's all types of ways the apple trees got here, and also the honeybees.
Well, the honeybees come from Europe. They are not native to North America.
That's correct.
And now, regardless of what you hear on the internet and you hear on the news, there's 26 other insects that pollinate fruit trees in your gardens, okay? And yes, it just happens to be the most aggressive is the honeybee.
Right. Or most widely known.
Yeah.
Because there's also mason bees. There's even butterflies. If you have butterflies early in the spring or whatever.
Right.
House flies can actually go and carry pollen. Bumblebees, carpenter bees, all that stuff. But anyway, the reason you choose your rootstock, you can choose for genetic, being able to resist fire blight, a bacterial disease, or vigor on growing, all these things. So that's the reason you'd want to choose your rootstock. And then you can choose your scion wood, your grafting wood, from a tree that may be a Granny Smith, maybe a Macintosh, whatever you're choosing, and you can graft it on there, and anything above that graft will be that apple
That species
you've chosen. That's correct.
That's cool stuff.
Well, there you go. So that tells you right now that apple's a GMO.
That's
They
correct.
really are, yeah.
So if you take a seed from an apple, let's say you have 7 or 9 or however many seeds you have inside your apple, and you go to plant that seed, you're going to get an apple tree. But it's going to be genetically different from whatever tree you or whatever apple you got it out of. So if you had a Granny Smith and you took a seed out of the Granny Smith apple, you put it into the ground, and you plant it, you're going to get something that's a genetic offspring of the Granny Smith and whoever the pollen, the pollen that came from someplace else. You don't know. It could have been a crab apple. It could have been a Grimes Golden. It could have been any tree within like a 3-mile area that the pollen came from. And so each one of those seeds can be separately pollinated.
That's about like a gang of pups, ain't it?
Like a goat or whatever. Yeah,
different colors.
But that's why that's why there was 1,000 different varieties in just Appalachia alone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool, and grafting too is just any tree species. And I can remember a family member that had a dogwood tree, and one side was white and one side was pink, where they had grafted from on the same tree. So grafting's pretty cool, and like you said, I think in the especially in the commercial orchard business, if you will, grafting's really pretty much the way they always go.
Yes,
yes. That's the norm, if you will.
Because you do not know what you're going to get if you're just putting a seed into the ground. It's going to be a genetic offspring of whoever the mother and the father, the pollen, was that comes together. And then just like in your family, your siblings, even if you share the same parents, each sibling's going to be different.
Well, that's a good example.
Yeah, right. So I've got an interesting question because we love history on this show. In case you didn't know, so one of the things that I know is like, especially the earlier settlers when they were coming into the Appalachians, then beyond, right? One of the first things they would do once they found a homestead, they were starting up. One of the first things they would do is plant trees, especially apple trees. Daniel Boone was famous for planting quite a few, and of course the Johnny Appleseed story and all that. But my question is, back then, 200 years ago, was grafting a common practice, or was that really growing from Johnny Appleseed?
No, that was practice that was brought from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
It had been practiced for many, many years. The Europeans knew how to do that, and that's the reason when they came to the United States, or not United States, but North America, the natives here, they did not practice grafting or trying to select.
Well, they were hunter-gatherers.
They were hunter-gatherers. That's correct. So when the Europeans came, they brought their knowledge along, and also grafting. Sometimes they were just bringing seeds over. So if you grow an apple tree, just for the apple itself, you can use it for making cider. You can use it for cleaning vinegar. That's one of those things. So it doesn't really matter what it tastes like if you're making cleaning vinegar out of your apples.
And a lot of ciders too were made out of the crab apples and things like that also.
The crab apple adds the tannins to the sharpness to the cider.
Well, and here's a random note to the sidebar here. You know why they used a lot of why cider was such a popular drink?
Clean you out.
Right. Yeah. Well, today we know all about like parasites and things in water, but what they didn't realize at the end. But what they're doing is they're getting cleaner drink, if you will, because it's got yeast in it, but it doesn't have all the other stuff that made you sick.
Well,
and so that's where same thing with beer.
There's a lot of plants out there that people don't have an idea on that were medicinal.
Yeah. So. But no, apples. I'm a big apple fan. I do miss my apple trees. I'm not gonna lie. But
I miss the cherry trees and the peach trees.
Well, my first job as a teenager was working on a peach orchard. I had a great uncle that had the largest peach orchard in the 3 counties in Virginia there, and I was 13 years old, and now there it was.
Now they're gone.
Get up. Yeah, there's one or two trees left, but that's the way it goes, I guess. But the good thing is, I bought a stereo with that first money. So I do remember that at least. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back right after this. That's right, all about home construction here on WATA. Thanks for listening to us. Speaking with Travis Small from talking about apple tree. Well, trees in general. I like to talk about apple trees, fruit trees. We tend to kind of hang up on apple trees, but that's all right. So now you had mentioned in the beginning that this is the time of year. Well, really, we're at the end of that time of year where you're pruning the trees and taking care of it. I think a lot of people think, well, the fruits, the trees are just dormant in the winter. You don't have to do anything to them. You just look at them. But that's really when a lot of the actual work for the tree itself takes place.
Yes, it's a very good time of year because there's no leaves to block the view of your branching. It's a good time to look at the structure, make sure you don't have crisscrossing branches, anything going straight up or straight down. You could actually just go in and clean things out of the center of your tree so you get airflow. You want good airflow to reduce any bacterial or fungal issues during the summertime. Right now, also, because of the cooler, drier weather, you have less fungal issues or bacterial issues because it's cooler and drier. Not like the summertime during dog days of summer. It's real humid and hot, and that's when you have the most bacterial issues.
Now, what about, I see these balls that they want to hang in trees to try to catch a certain insect.
Yes, that's for the maggot fly. And what that is a usually red plastic ball that's hung in the middle of the summer, July, August time frame, because that's when the maggot fly usually comes in this area. And what they do is they cover it with a substance like tanglefoot. It's a real sticky substance, even if it gets rained on. And so then they hang a pheromone nearby. So the females, they come along, they're flying, they smell the pheromones, they come along, and they're like, oh, look, there's an apple, let's go land on this apple. And then they get stuck.
Okay.
So then you go out and you do your surveys in your orchard, and you count the number of maggot flies that are on the ball. Once you get up to a certain threshold number, then you know it's time to spray for your maggot flies. But before then, you don't need to spray necessarily for maggot flies. You want to make sure you have enough of a threshold to say, now we need to
Now, are they
take care of the
are they
issue.
common here?
Here in Watauga County, I haven't noticed it as much as when I was down in Spruce Pine, working at the Orchard Altapass. We actually had the traps out there. We were going out counting the number of maggot flies. Now, up here in Watauga County, I have not been setting the traps out. I have not been dealing with that because I just have not found as many maggot flies. Now, there could be areas that are different than where I've been working.
Now, is there other insects that we have to really pay attention to?
Oh, yeah. There's all types of insects that will crawl up the tree in the springtime, and so you can moths and everything else. But if there's some insects that will crawl up the trunk, and what people will do is take a piece of cloth, wrap around the trunk of the tree, and then take a sticky substance like the tanglefoot and paint the cloth. So then when you're done catching the insects, you can just take the cloth off, and most of your tanglefoot will come with it, so you don't have that sticky, nasty-looking substance on the trunk of the tree the whole time. But back to the maggot fly real quick, is that the pheromone attracts the females. Well, then, because it's actually a male pheromone. Yeah. So that's what attracts the female maggot fly. So then the male flies, they're come along, and they get to this apple tree, and they're like, oh, there's too many males over there. Let's go find someplace else.
Yeah.
So they go find someplace else to hang out.
Wow.
So it actually interrupts their life cycle. If the males think that there's other competition,
and now you're killing out
not
the females.
there.
That's
so you
cool.
kind of interrupt their life cycle a little bit.
Well, maybe we can interrupt the boar bees sometime.
Yeah.
Well, so you've mentioned a couple things. You mentioned the fungus and the bacteria. Which when we think about, again, diseases, if you will, for trees, what do you see the most, and how do we fix it?
Fire blight is the most prevalent, and it is a bacterial infection. It'll come in when the trees are in bloom is when they're the most susceptible to the fire blight bacteria. And the bacteria gets into the little delicate parts of the flower, and then it'll go from the tip back to a branch, and eventually, if you don't cut the bacteria out and burn it, burning is the best way of destroying the bacteria, it'll actually go back into the trunk, and eventually it'll take the tree, kill the tree. But if you go in there and cut it out, is the physical way of doing it. Now, you can also spray it with streptomycin or some other substance like that will actually attack the bacteria.
That's a pretty stout chemical, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I only do it spray streptomycin in extreme cases.
Is there other things that you can spray with that's not as heavy or strong, I should say?
Well, to help prevent bacteria and other funguses, a product, something like Surround, which is a kaolin clay. That's Kaolin, kaolin clay. And it just it's a clay powder substance you mix with water in your tank sprayer, backpack sprayer, or tank sprayer, and you go out and you spray the tree, and it leaves a powdery residue all over the leaves and branches and trunk of the tree, and the insects will come along and they'll get on there and they're constantly having to clean themselves. But the kaolin clay also keeps the tree drier, just like if you put talcum powder on your body, it keeps it drier. So drier conditions will reduce fungal and bacterial issues. It also, during the summertime, it reduces heat stress because it reflects the sunlight.
Huh. Makes sense.
There's many different benefits of just spraying something simple as an organic substance, kaolin clay.
Is there worms that will attack the trees?
Yes. Well,
I've heard about the old timers talking about the worms coming up in the bark in the February, March.
Yeah, that's the you'd have to. The name of the insect escapes me right now, but yes, that's the reason you'd take and put tanglefoot around the base of the tree.
Okay, so it's not actually going in the inside of the tree going in, but it's crawling up the outside.
Yes, and what happens is the caterpillar will actually climb up and it'll go out and it'll lay its eggs in the fruit and on leaves. Different insects do it different ways, and then that ends up on the floor of your orchard. And so in the fall time, that's the reason it's good to mow and chop up all your leaves and any fruit that's out there to help break up the life cycle of the insect. Because if you can get all that stuff broken up or removed or any of that stuff, the insect won't be there to climb back up. Yeah. So that's breaking the life cycle once again.
Now, you mentioned the clay. Is that something we could do with most fruit trees?
Yes. It could be used on tomato plants also. Any of these things, because it's just
keeping it dry.
Just clay. It's keeping it dry, reducing the heat stress.
Now, that's a little different than the diatomaceous earth?
Yes, it is a different substance.
Okay.
But because the diatomaceous earth actually is working to cut into and scratch the ectoskeletal structure of the insects and make them bleed out and dehydrate and die.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, that's cool stuff. As a homeowner now, if I've got a couple fruit trees in the backyard kind of thing, is that something that we can get? Is that something I can purchase? Because I know, again, having a little bit of a background of growing up on an orchard, like not just anybody can go and get, whatever sprays. Is this something that as a homeowner I can go and pick up?
Yeah, here locally you can source it. It's organic. There's no special license to purchase. It's like I say, just a clay substance. You do want to wear a respirator because you don't want to get any of that in your lungs and just irritate your respiratory system. But it's you can get it locally. You can mix it yourself.
That's
you
cool.
can spray it.
Well, I think that's the crucial thing, and because again, and when you don't have a large orchard where you're spending thousands of dollars on sprays and tractors and tanks and stuff, I think a lot of times it's hard to kind of take care of just one or two trees in some aspects like that, and especially not knowing and I mean I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but like ignorance kind of things, just not understanding how to do it, what to do to them. And that goes across the board of any kind of tree, but especially fruit trees.
Now how, like Amazon's got this copper fungicide, how potent is that?
That's a very common use. Copper will affect the funguses and also the insects. It makes the insects sterile.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I know that's what we use in treated lumber is copper sulfate.
Yeah.
So, and well, it's just trying to further my education on fruit trees.
Yep. And spraying of sulfur is another common organic way of controlling funguses.
Now, I remember when I was a kid, they used to put white lime around all the trees.
Yeah.
To kill, was that to kill the crawling bugs?
That may have been something that they done to control insects, but for the most part, spreading lime neutralizes the acid in the soil. Mm-hmm. So apple trees are kind of in the middle of the pH scale. So in a lot of the soil in the mountains in this area is going to be acid loving because we have all the pine trees, we have the rhododendrons and mountain laurels. So they're all acid loving plants.
Correct.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's the soil. I mean, fertilizing apple trees especially is, or I say apple trees, any fruit trees. Fertilizing them is one of the things that I think is overlooked a lot of times on the small scale thing, the backyard farm kind of thing. It's like, what do you put on it? When do you put it in? Kind of thing.
Right. Well, some people say fall time, some people say springtime, and my philosophy on fertilizing is that if you fertilize in the fall time, that's when the trees are trying to go to sleep.
Right.
So it's like just grabbing their toes and shaking them while they're supposed to be in bed going to sleep.
That makes sense.
So I wait until the springtime, and when the trees start to bloom out and get leaves on, that's when I apply fertilizer.
Nice. We'll take another break. We'll come right back right after this. That's right. All about home construction here on WATA. Again, speaking with Travis Small, talking about trees, in particular, fruit trees.
Well, you're getting a lot more people that want to start doing their fruit trees, living a little healthier and stuff. And a couple of weeks ago, I asked you about patio trees. fruit trees and stuff. Because, now you can buy the orange trees, you can buy banana trees, tangerine trees, apple trees, two types. There's a red and a yellow apple tree that's supposed to grow straight up. And I was interested in them because, I have a spot that's real steep, but I don't have a lot of area in it. And I'd rather have something grow straight up than bush out.
So, as a homeowner, especially here in the mountains, what recommendations do you have on like varieties of apples and peaches, and or is it? I mean, I know there's thousands of varieties, but do you see that there's one that's easier to take care of than the others up here?
Well, first of all, peach trees take a lot of care. The wild cherry trees have a black knot fungal issue, and they're affecting the peach trees, the plum trees, and it just makes it difficult to grow those. Keep it simple. The Agricultural Extension Service here in Watauga County and over in Avery County, they have fruit tree sales, and they have some of the heirloom varieties.
Nice.
And the sales are going on right now. One in particular I like that is an older variety is Grimes Golden. And it is one of the parents to the modern-day Golden Delicious. Huh. Now, one reason it's not as popular is the skin has a tendency of having little blemishes on it. Now, it's a very good, sweet-tasting apple. And when you cut into it, it does not oxidize or turn brown quickly. Nice. So you can cut one and come back to it 2 hours later, and it hasn't even started to turn brown yet. Wow. But it's with the blemishes, make an apple for the regular grocery store.
Right.
It's not eye appealing.
Not eye appealing.
Well, and that's the case with any apple, though. I mean, especially you look at them and it's like they look bad, but some of those are the best tasting apples.
Right,
I mean, it's when you go to these grocery store apples that almost look plastic, to me are. Yeah, I know people. That's what people buy, and a lot of people expect that. But to me, that's the apple I don't want.
The thing about it is you don't know how old that apple is.
Right.
Right.
Because some of those apples 6-8 months old because of cold storage.
Yep.
Cold storage, and you can also take the cold storage down below freezing because there's sugar content inside the apples. So you could be down 26, 27 degrees and store those apples for a long period of time.
Have you ever been in the apple barn at the mission school?
In Valley Christmas?
Yeah.
Yes.
In the middle of summer, it'd be 85 degrees outside, and you'll have to wear a jacket on the inside.
Yep.
I've only been in it twice, and I just thought it was remarkable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Seeing those sorting machines are cool, too. Like those old school sorting machines.
Yeah.
It's cool stuff. It's cool stuff. But
yeah, and we've had I've been around a polishing machine where you dump the apples in and it goes
little
up
brushes or whatever,
kind of shakes any debris off the apples, and then it goes up through the cotton rags that are on rollers.
Wow. Never
and
seen one.
Polishes them, and Virginia Beauty will just polish up real nice. Be shiny as can be with no wax. There's no 3M products or anything on there. It's just natural wax.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. It's really cool. And apples, I just love apples. Now, as a homeowner, again, I'm just trying to keep on that route for just a moment here. Like, if a homeowner, I come in, I want to plant a tree. First of all, when do I plant it, and then how long until I get fruit?
Okay, that's a.
Because there's a big argument, right, of when to plant an apple tree.
Right. There's a lot. Now, if you're going, it's springtime, you got the spring fever, you want to go plant something, great time of year to go ahead and plant. And the fall time is another great time to plant. So before the ground starts to freeze or anything, which we haven't really had to worry about this past winter, but in this area, a semi-dwarf tree will give you fruit in about 5 years, 5-6 years.
Now, let me ask you another question. Now, when you plant that tree, do you plant the graft under the ground or do you plant the graft above the ground?
Graft above the ground. And so we'll go ahead with this.
I know.
We're coming down to the last few minutes.
So the graft above the ground. Now here's the reason. Now, you're trying to keep the genetics of the rootstock. So if you have semi-dwarf rootstock and you're wanting the tree growing up to maybe 15 foot tall, now you want the genetics of the rootstock. Now if you take that graft union and you bury it under the ground. So your root ball, and you've taken it all the way up past the graft union, it's going to start throwing roots. And when I say throwing roots, it's like a tomato plant. You bury a tomato plant deep, and it'll start throwing roots, and an apple tree does the same thing. So you'll have the genetics of whatever tree that was grafted. Now, it could be the Granny Smith, it could be whatever variety. But the genetics will be of whatever that tree was. So you may not be improving the fire blight resistance or the vigor of the tree if you let that start throwing roots.
Graft, right.
And what if it came from a tree that was 40 foot tall? And you thought you were going to have a 15-foot tall tree.
Okay,
Sure.
see, that's the reason I'm asking the question.
That's cool.
Now, after you've got this tree planted, can you mulch around that tree?
Yes.
But keep the roots, but keep the graft stock still above the mulch.
Yes. You mulch around the tree, but don't create a volcano up next to the trunk of the tree, like we see a lot of the landscapers in the area. Yeah, more's better. All the commercial places around here with the mulch piled up around, that's not good for any tree. But with the apple tree or fruit trees of any sort, you can take the mulch right up to the base of the tree, but don't pile the mulch on the bark itself, because it could start throwing roots.
Okay.
Nice. I'm telling you, man, trees are fun. Trees are fun. I love a good apple tree.
Well, there's science behind everything,
right?
Yeah.
It's well, and that's it. And and again, especially something like apples. I want to say it was. Don't hold me to this. Was it Ireland? I think it was at one point in time they required every farm to have one tree or something like that. Don't hold me to that. I can't remember which country that was, but there was one of those European countries where, for a certain period of time, there was 100 years or so, where they're like, you have to have a tree.
Well, that's because they'd cut down everything for firewood.
Yep. So I'm pretty sure it was Irish, because that's where the Irish ciders were being came from. So it's cool. It's cool stuff. Well, Travis, thanks again for coming in.
Yes,
really appreciate it. It's always fun to learn new things, and trees being one of those.
For the homeowners that want to plant fruit trees around their house.
That's it. So now is okay time to plant.
Yes, it is.
That's good to know. So, well, thanks again, and Randy, we'll see how things go. We'll see you next week. Sound good?
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. See you, Randy.
Bye.